Welcome back. This is Detective Chase Clay, closing the case of Outlast 2. Finally, we made it after so many horrors and scars and trauma in this game. We got to the end. My pen exploded in my hands. Just a side note, when I went to open it to write down some notes, so we're gonna be a bit messy, but it's fine. So, if you don't know what we do in these closed situations, essentially we just do a summary of what happened in the last final episode, then some final thoughts, tying it up nicely together, and then also future plans as well. So, nice little conclusion to this entire thing. Nice little conclusion to this not nice game, but not nice in a good way, because it freaked me the hell out. So we'll start off with the summary, right? Investigation board is complete. You can see a lot of people have red X's next to them because a lot of people ended up with a horrible demise, so we'll get to that. So previously, Blake was still running through the mines, dodging, dipping, ducking, diving these heretics trying to capture him, the proclaimed father of the Antichrist. And we did so, but then we got caught by a couple of them and had Val in front of us, which I'm gonna say they're Val, right? All signs pointing towards them, the dude or chick, whatever they are. But they were encouraging Blake to show his true face. So Val put on some crown on her head. Honestly reminded me of like a heretic version of the crown of thorns that Jesus wears in that religion. But she was also saying to Blake, show your true face, show your true face. And I don't know if that was a metaphor or this hallucination making them go all crazy, probably the reason, or if something was genuinely going to happen, but we didn't get to stick around to find out because conveniently some shakings happened in the cave and dropped 2 rocks on the heretics next to us, allowing Blake to escape with Val still in pursuit. We eventually managed to get away from her and found Lynn, who was strung up on all fours like a contorted puppet. Horrible sight to look at, especially with her still being pregnant and her stomach being like below, and it was really weird to look at. This heretic blew dust on us. Blake was out of his mind. I don't know what he inhaled from that, but between Lynn and Blake there was this I can't say it without saying what it was. It was a massive orgy, essentially. Like, there were people boinking each other left, right, and center. I'm guessing to show what they call love, because the whole part of the heretics thing is about spreading the love, and I'm guessing sex is their love. So they were doing that, and before we could get to Lynn, Blake fell down. I'm guessing he was forcibly boinked on by Val as well, but we didn't get to see it because a flashbang. Yeah, SWAT came in, flashbang, no. A flashback occurred where we saw Jess and Blake hanging around, and just as they were about to leave, they got confronted by Father Loutermilch, which was, you know, I've put him on there as well, just because we saw him before, but I wasn't sure who he was. But Father Loutermilch, the creepy vulture, greasy weasel dude, who, after some conversation, pushed Blake out of the classroom, encouraging him to leave, and kept Jess behind. Now, Blake was walking away, and he heard Jess scream, like, "No, get away from me." And so he doubled back to chase after them. Assumedly, Loutermilch did some nasty, forceful stuff with Jess, right? And when Blake caught up to them, it was that same staircase where we actually saw arms. So this must be a link. Arms is what maybe Blake and Jess saw as Loutermilch, because I recognized with arms as well, when he was chasing you and you would hide behind a toilet stall, he would sound human. And if you got a good look at him, he had the same bald spot hairstyle that Father Loutermilch has as well. So maybe it's a metaphor for the demon inside of him. But we got to that staircase. Jess was at the bottom of it, face completely bloodied over, neck swollen and reddened. Either that was Loutermilch grabbing it, or maybe because he pushed her down the stairs, assumedly. She broke her neck, so that's where that happened. And then he was gaslighting Blake and saying, like, I don't know what you think you saw. And maybe that's why Blake keeps on saying, it's not my fault, because maybe Loutermilch made him think that it was his fault somehow and got away from the blame. Also have no idea what happens to him as well, because it was never explained what happened to him after that. Maybe in a document or something, but I didn't see that. And so we got out of the flashback, and the villagers actually took over the mines. They were beating up all the heretics, presumably to death, saying, you don't turn your back on Papa Noth and God and whatnot. And then they saw Blake, another chase happened, Blake got away from it and got to the outside where he found Lynn. And the outside, it was storms, thunder, lightning, the forest was black and charred, petrified, there was winds. It was really the apocalypse impending, the giant red fireball in the sky, the sun probably about to go kaboom or hit onto the ground. It wasn't looking good. We were getting Jess somewhere. Lynn. We were getting Lynn somewhere to safety. God, this game's made me mix up their names just like Blake is. But then another chase happened where Marta came along and she wanted to fulfill her mission of killing Lynn or killing the kid inside Lynn so they could carry on with their paradise or whatever Noth has brainwashed into her. But she died because a massive pole came out of nowhere, another convenient thing, smashed right through Marta, back to front, impaling her. And thematically, the top of the pole was a sign of the cross. That was a kind of a cool theme that happened there. Kind of coming full circle about believing in this god and eventually a sign of that god smiting you because of how absolutely crazy they were. But it was awfully convenient for that to happen. I kind of expected Blake to have some kind of impact on her death being such a big antagonist. Like, you know, spoilers for Outlast 1 and Whistleblower, by the way. Well, not really Outlast 1, but Whistleblower, Waylon had a part in defeating Eddie Gluskin, right? And in Outlast 1, even though Miles didn't have a direct impact in killing, I don't know, Chris Walker or the dude with the suit at the end, he still had some kind of connection, right, with the Wall Rider and all that, I guess. But it was more about Whistleblower than Outlast 1, so that is what it is, but that's the way Marta died. And then we got Lynn back to the chapel where she eventually gave birth to this kid, the supposed Antichrist, right? However, she died post-childbirth, and right at the end her final words were, "There's nothing there." Didn't understand what that meant. Did that mean that she finally saw past the hallucinations and really it was all just, you know, nothing really there? Was the kid / Antichrist not there? Is she talking about the afterlife? Nothing's there. Does she have some kind of clarity when dying? Nothing's there. I had no clue what that was, but that's what she said. And that induced another flashback. Nothing too important. A bit more about Jess and Blake talking to each other before that whole horrible scene went down with Loutermilch. But then as he woke up, Papa Noth was there. And he was saying God went silent. He was still advocating to kill the kid. And even though he's a twisted, sick individual himself in sacrificing all of his people for this supposed prophecy and in the name of God, he did have one cool line, which, knife in hand, he said, "I know God doesn't hear dead men, but I expect he answers them." Slit his throat, completely just offed himself there. Blake didn't say anything, he just, I guess he recorded and commented, but he just carried on and walked out of the chapel. The skies were silent, everything was fine. The big giant fireball was still high in the sky. And when he went to the center of town, still with this kid / Antichrist in arm, all of the villagers seemed to have drank cyanide, poison, and just done a mass killing of themselves because everyone was on the floor dead. And as Blake walked his apparent final steps, the giant red fireball, the sun in the sky, got bigger and bigger and bigger, exploded, everything cut to white, which is when... That was the end of that, but there was also kind of a little extra flashback, which was so cute and wholesome and heartwarming, but also really sad because you know of Jess's end. It was the final flashback, also the flashback that started it all. Blake meeting Jess at the back of the kitchen in the storeroom. She was saying, "You never let me go, I'll never let you go." And they just sat there together and prayed, and that was the end of that. So that's the summary done. It was quite a big one. Obviously not... I tried to keep the summaries in... when we're doing the normal episodes short, because I don't want to be sitting here for 10 minutes explaining what happened, but I thought the final summary should have a bit more diligence done to it and a bit more explanation, because a lot happened. And this is where I'm going to talk about my opinions of it, because I honestly think it was a weird ending. In not that I didn't understand what happened, because it was told to us what happened, you know, with how Jess died, the supposed end of the world, but that's also the thing that confused me. There was no more explanation of what happened with the hallucinations, right? When Lynn said there's nothing there, was that to do with the factory / tower we've been seeing with the flashing bright white lights that caused the hallucinations that we saw with the villagers? Was the kid even real? Like, none of that was explained, and they didn't even, because this game was released quite a couple of years ago now, and no DLC was released for it as well, any prequel or sequel to it. I know there was some comics that were released, and they kind of explain... I'm not going to spoil it here. Maybe I'll make another video for it to explain those, depending on copyright and whatnot, but it should be okay. There was an actual reason of that whole sun exploding and whatnot. It's tied to the previous Outlasts, but again, I won't spoil it here. I still think, because people don't necessarily go out for the extra content to, you know, read the comics, or I believe some of it was also explained in the notes, but not everyone reads the notes or gets to pick up the notes, especially when running away from murdering villagers. So I feel like some gameplay would have been nice to expand on that, but they left it where it was. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. And also Val as well, because I just saw one of my notes. When the villagers seized the mines, we saw them kicking someone. I'm not sure if that was Val or just a random heretic, but I don't know what happened to Val either, because Val wouldn't have killed themselves because they wanted the Antichrist to be born, unless that was their ultimatum, and then they're like, okay, peace out, and you know, off themselves. But I'm not sure what happened to them either. But whether they die or didn't die, this is a good segue into deaths. Because I feel like a lot of the deaths, Marta, even Laird and Nick, now looking at the board, it seemed awful convenient, right? Like with Laird and Nick, the villagers just happened to push them for some reason. Maybe they're going crazy. But more so with like Marta, you know, this horrible presence that has been chasing us down, and then she's about to kill us, and whoop-de-da, a massive pole comes through, impales her, end of story. Like, I know the hallucinations are tied to the real world, but what are the odds that a pole just comes and smites Marta like that? Pun intended. It just makes no sense for that to happen. But that being the story, I guess that's how the story played out, and if that pole was to hit anywhere, it happened to hit there. Luckily, hit her and saved us. There's probably an explanation to it, but I don't know. If you do know, comment that through. Maybe it's explained in notes, in I don't know, a comic or dev commentary. I have no idea, but I'm just commenting on what I actually saw in game as well. And overall, it was a freaky ass game. The whole concept of sacrificing children and people, and this one religious cult leader being able to do whatever they want in the name of the Lord, of their God, right? That was totally messed up. They really showed all of it. You know, they really went visceral, gory, raw. They really did. They really went the whole 9 yards. Way more messed up than Outlast 1 and 2. I feel like on the messed up scale, it went from Outlast 1 to Whistleblower to 2. Sorry. Outlast 1 to Whistleblower to 2, it got more and more and more messed up. But in a good way, because it was damn scary to run away from those things like Marta, Led, and Nick. Noth wasn't really that scary since he was more of a story antagonist more than a gameplay antagonist. But even the villagers as well, you did not want... This game does epitomize the meaning of run, hide, or die, especially because, you know, you can't fight back, so the only thing you can do is just take that pacifist route and just try to get away as fast as you can. The mechanics are awesome, especially with the microphone on the camera. I'm so happy that didn't drain battery, or if it did, it was very tiny, because that was so useful in evading everyone. But I would understand if it would drain battery because it's such a powerful tool. However, if it did drain battery, you'd either have to have the battery draining mechanic to be slower, otherwise you just burn through batteries, or give more batteries, find some way to balance that out, right? And another small thing is when you could hide under beds. In Outlast 1 and Whistleblower, you would click to hide under them. But in Outlast 2, it was you can now crawl under them. Pardon me. I honestly think I prefer the click because it's much more faster and fluid. But I also understand the crawling because you can turn around anywhere you want, so it makes it a bit more flexible and dynamic in that way. And the very last thing is, again, sometimes the convenience of some of the enemies dying was a bit too on the nose, like, hey, you're about to die. Oh, you got saved, congratulations. But again, that's how the story went, and it's not a huge nitpick because the story was brilliant in itself, scary as hell, but fear-inducing good. Like, it was nice in that way. And obviously, rip Jess, man. Rip to Anna Lee, rip to Ethan, rip to Lynn. Like, there was some... It wasn't like a character where you got way too attached to in terms of, you know, comparing it to any other video game. But, you know, Jess, she's a kid. Oh, it doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult. No one deserves that kind of fate, that kind of crap that happened to them. Ethan, dude, I got attached to him because, like, he was the only sane person in this entire village that understood how bullshit Noth was and his sayings. But unfortunately, he got killed by Marta, and he gave us a home in this mess. So, I did see some people comment, what about a DLC that was a prequel where you play Anna Lee and what she went through, and maybe it could show the transition from the villagers being normal to the flashbacks turning them more and more crazy. I thought that would have been a cool idea. So I forgot who commented that, but props to them for thinking on that cool idea. And that is the end of Outlast 2. That is the case closed right there. Super fun. I know Outlast Trials is going to be released in, I think, October, November. So I want to give that a go as well, because it's another Outlast, so why not? And the next plans that are going to happen is going to take a bit of a break, not to do nothing, because I have clips to make from Outlast and release. I also have remaining clips from Resident Evil that I haven't finished, so I want to get all those wrapped up and done, because the next thing I want to do is not a recorded case, is actually go back to a previous thing that we've played, a previous game that we've played, but do it at the most highest difficulty, because there's no, and this is a stream by the way, because there's no point streaming the exact same difficulty, because then what's the point of that? Might as well just go see the recorded version, right? But having it at the highest difficulty is going to add another layer of scares, and I think it'll be fun. No idea what that's going to be, but keep an eye out on posts or yeah, I really have no idea. It might be Dead Space, since that was the first thing we did. It might be Outlast 1. just wait and see what happens. Community posts, Discord server, all of that good stuff. And I've also got a little bit of rebranding to do as well. Nothing, I'm not going to turn into a fireman or anything. Still good old Detective Chase Clay, but just clean things up a little bit as much as I can. And except for that, I think that will be it. Nice little 20-minute discussion on this. I'm happy. I'm happy for it. So, at the beginning and end, I say all the time for the cases, like if you like the videos, comment your thoughts, share them. I read all of them. Super interested to see what you think. Try to keep spoilers to a minimum. It doesn't really matter about Outlast 2 since it's case closed, but you know, future references. And subscribe to become a junior detective of the agency and join this little community we got going on. And except for that, that's pretty much all I have. Double checking my notes. All done. Keep your eyes open for the next one, whatever or whenever that may be. But in the meantime, take care and I'll see you then.